This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
This week's Parsha talks about the mitzvah of Shmita, right? The sabbatical year. Let's just get a few halachos clear exactly what is Shmita, and then there's something called Yovel. Especially, this week we spoke about Israel, so we have to speak about some of the mitzvot hatzuyos ba'aretz, some of the laws that are dependent on the land. First, there's a mitzvah of Shmita, which means in the seventh year, you have to leave the land fallow. What does that mean? You can't plant, you can't harvest, you can't reap, you can't prune, you can't plow, nothing. Can't work the land. The year takes a break. The year goes on. The land goes on a sabbatical. Can't do anything to the land. Besides that, all the slaves go free. All the Jewish slaves, they could go free, even though you bought the slave, you acquired him. Nevertheless, all the Eved Ivri goes free after 6 years. Fine. Now there's another aspect of Shmita that does not only apply in the land of Israel, and that is the aspect of Shmitas Ksafim, right? The letting the land lie fallow only applies in the land of Israel. But there's another aspect of Shmita called Shmitas Ksafim, which means, Reuven, I lend you $1,000, yeah? So you have to pay me back. But Shmita comes, it cancels that. That's it. It's over.
So don't pay.
So you know the tricks already. You know all the tricks. But before any tricks, if I lend somebody money, Shmita cancels the debt. Okay? Now there's a halacha, right? There's different ways around it, right? Very good.
Yeah, you could hand your contracts to Beit Din.
Very good. Very good. You could deliver the loan to Bezdin. You could give a pikadon. Very good.
Then it comes in the Rashi and it says, what's the difference if I keep my contracts and if Beit Din keeps it? It says that if Beit Din keeps it, it says they shouldn't keep a loan for your friend. But Beit Din has no friends. They have friends when you get Beit Din.
Okay, good. Okay. Now there's a law of Yovel. The Yovel year is the 50th year. Again, the same laws of Shmita that you can't work the land applies in the 50th year. Okay? And besides that, if you dealt any real estate, you sold any land, it comes back to you in the 50th year. So let's say you're selling a house, you're selling land, and tomorrow's Yovel, you're not going to get too much money for your house because it's going to be a one-day sale. If Yovel is going to be in 49 years, you could charge more money for it. Okay. Rabbi Glatstein, nowadays, there's no more Yovel. Even in the land of Israel, there's no Yovel. Why not? Why is there no Yovel? The halacha is, in order for Yovel to apply, you need the Jewish people to live in the land of Israel. See, it's our fault. We're here in America, enjoying ourselves in America. Because of us, there's no Yovel. How many Jews do you need to live in the land of Israel for Yovel to apply?
600,000.
All the Jews.
600,000.
So Yovel?
And not only do you need all the Jews, even if all the Jews live in Israel, Yovel still doesn't apply until the Shvatim are settled in their proper land. In other words, Binyamin is in its share, Yosef's in its share, Asher is in its share. If the Shvatim are in their correct places, the dinim, the laws of Yovel apply.
So no Yovel laws apply anymore?
No Yovel laws applies.
Until Mashiach comes.
Until the Jews return to Israel.
Until you're going to have to
we're going to see, the Rambam will tell us that when Mashiach comes, one of the things that he'll do is he'll restore the Shemitah and Yovel system. Fine. So does Yovel apply in any shape or form? Nothing. The only thing we do as a commemoration of Yovel is, at the end of Yom Kippur, what do? We blow shofar. What's the reason we blow shofar? Rav Haigon says to commemorate the shofar blowing that was done in the Yovel year. So why do we blow every year? It's a good question. But the reason we blow shofar at the end of Yom Kippur is to commemorate Yovel. Now, that's the only halacha of Yovel that still applies.
You count the Yovel since Bnei Israel got into Israel, or you count it since the creation of the world?
Good question. We're not going to get into that, okay. And I don't know the answer. Okay? Fine. So here's the question. No Yovel laws apply. What about Shmita? Does Shmita apply nowadays? So you say, why not? Why should Shmita not apply? Well, Shmita may be dependent on Yovel. And if Yovel doesn't apply, perhaps Shmita doesn't apply. We're going to see there are different opinions. Okay? Now here's the question. Yes.
The first year of Shmita, if it falls on the year of Yovel, is it overlaps, or that's a separate year?
No. 6 years Shmita. 6 years Shmita, 6 years. The seventh Shmita is followed by the 50th year, which is Yovel. So you have 2 years together.
So it's 2 years together.
So that means you're going to have 2 years with you're on vacation for 2
So
years.
that means that our Shmita is not correct because we're skipping the year.
Okay, no, he's asking if we don't know a Yovel.
Yeah, you count 1 year, but then 5 more years, then Shmita again.
But if we don't have Yovel, we don't count it. No, Yovel.
No, you're asking how do we count?
Yovel too.
Hey, you're asking how do we count Shmita if we don't? You're saying we count Yovel, but we don't keep it.
Yeah.
So the year after Yovel, is that year 1 of the cycle, or year 2 of the cycle?
It's 2 of the cycle.
Okay, that's also another issue we're not going to discuss. Okay, we're going to discuss the following issue. Tosfos asks, enjoy your following question. Tosfos asks, okay, Tosfos and Masechta Gittin. This we're going to have a little bit of a different shiur tonight. Okay, you have to really put on your thinking caps tonight. Tosfos asks the following question. Okay, why do we not have any commemoration of Yovel? The same way we commemorate Shmita. Okay, again, I said, if I lend Ruvain $1,000, Shmita comes, cancels the debt. Now, does it cancel the debt min ha-Torah? Nowadays, no. Nowadays, no. Okay, again, let's just get something clear one more time. We're going to assume, for clarity purposes, that nowadays the laws of Shmita are no longer in effect mid-oraisa biblically. Because since Yovel does not apply, Shmita does not apply either. So why nowadays does Shmita cancel a debt? Midrabanan, as a commemoration of the Shmita of long ago. That's what at least one point in the Gemara tells us, that the reason why nowadays Shmita cancels debt is to commemorate Shmita of long ago. And what Tosfos wants to know is, if you're going to commemorate Shmita, why don't we commemorate Yovel? And we should say that in the 50th year, you cannot work the land. Why don't we say that? The same way we say Midrabanan, Shmita cancels debts, we should say Midrabanan, you're not allowed to work the land in Yovel, in the 50th year. That's Tosfos' question. You get the question? Why don't we at least commemorate Yovel? How? The Rabbanon should enact that in the 50th year, we don't work the land. That's Tosfos' question. Look what Tosfos said. Look at number 1. V'tikun Rabbanon, the rabbis enacted the Teshamet, that Shmita cancels the debt, Zecher l'Shmiyas, to commemorate Shmita. Ask Tosfos, v'hadulo tikonami Yovel. Why did the Chachamim not enact that on Yovel, Zecher l'Yovel, as a commemoration of Yovel? Why? Why don't we say that in the 50th year, you know how to work the land? At least midrabanan. You want to hear the answer? Because what's going to happen? How many consecutive years are you going to have of not working the land?
2 years.
2 years. Yeah, people can't handle that. You're going to tell people not to work for 2 years? 1 year you could tell people, don't work, have trust in God. 2 years, nobody's going to accept that. And the Chachamim only make takanos if people are able to abide by them. And therefore, since by enacting a Yovel year, a second year that you're not allowed to work, that would be too difficult for people to handle, the Chachamim did not institute that. Mishum de'ein rov tzibur yicholen lamod. The tzibur cannot handle that. Le'eser ba'avodas karka, to be prohibited to work the land, shtei shanim ritzufos, for 2 consecutive years. Okay? So again, Tosfos' question is, at least say midrabanan, you have to let the field remain fallow for the year 50. Tosfos says, no, 2 years in a row we can't do that. No. One second. What's Tosfos talking about? Tosfos seemed to have forgotten Chas v'shalom about a clear pasuk in the Torah. The Torah says, don't work the 7th year. And if you're going to say, what am I going to eat? I didn't plant, I didn't plow, I didn't harvest, I'm going to starve to death. So Hashem says, don't worry, I'm going to command a bracha in the 6th year, that the 6th year will be a bumper crop, and it will produce how many years worth? 3 years worth. For year 6, right? You need for the 6th year. You need for the 7th year, because you're not planting, you're not harvesting. And you need for the 8th year. What are you going to need in the 8th year if you didn't plant in the 7th year?
And to start the next year.
No, for 6, 7, and 8. 8 already you could plant and harvest. And what about if there's Yovel? You'll have a real bumper crop. You'll have 4 years worth, right? Okay, year 1, right? It's like saying, don't work on Shabbos. And if you're worried, what do you mean, how am I going to make income on Shabbos? Don't worry. Every Friday you go to Citibank, you'll see your bank account doubles for the day. That's what the Chumash says, right? If Hashem says it, you could take it to the bank. So, what's Tosfos saying? The Chachamim didn't want to institute Yovel. Why? Because people can't handle it. What do you mean people can't handle it? Well, we don't believe in the Torah. The Torah says that in the 6th year, or in the year before Shmita Yovel year, you'll have either triple or quadruple, so that you won't have to worry. So what's Tosfos say? People can't handle it. Yeah, they will be able to handle it. If what the Torah says if the Torah is true, if the Torah was given on Har Sinai, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't make it up, and God actually said this and promised this to us, then what do you mean people can't handle it? We'll be getting triple or quadruple in year 48, for year 48, year 49, year 50, or 51. What's Tosfos talking about? I'll ask you another question. If you look at number 10, skip around a little bit. There's a pasuk in Tehillim that talks about Giborei Koach Osei Ritzono, the mighty ones who do the will of God. Who are these people? Who are people who are really mighty? So the Mishnah says, the ones who perform a certain mitzvah. Which mitzvah? So the Medrash says, not people who keep Shabbos. It's one day a week. You could extend yourself. Not people who come to shul every day. Every day, it's only 7 days a week. People who keep Shmita. Why? Because it's a whole year to do a mitzvah. To be so consistent, to be able to do a mitzvah day after day after day after day, 365 days a year, that requires tremendous gevurah. That requires tremendous strength. Like it says by Mordechai, it says, V'chol yom v'yom, Mordechai mishalech l'fnei chazam, and he didn't bow down. Every day he didn't bow down. In general, we have an attitude in Judaism, we like to make a splash. We're going to save up all of our spiritual energy for this one thing, make the splash, and then, then sink. Then back to back to regular life, and you forget about it. We like to make the splash. No, it's consistency. It's not the splash. We want consistency. You know who are real giborim? Those who keep Shmita. Because every day they're thinking, okay, again I'm not going to go to work. How am I going to support my family? One day not to go to work. Okay, you could muster up bitachon for one day, but for 365 days a year, it's superhuman.
Not everybody is a farmer. Basically, if you think about Shmita, it's only for farmer. If you have no profession.
Yeah, look, it was an agricultural society, but you're right. For the farmers, you
can buy from a goy in Shmita. You can buy food.
Yeah, but if your job is you're a farmer, you're basically not working for a year. What's that going to do to the bank account?
Now you're going to zero.
It's going down, right? On the one hand, you're making 0.0083% interest, right? So you're making a penny and a half every 6 weeks, right? But on the other hand, every time you're going to the store, forget it, right? So, let me ask you a question. The big giborim, the mightiest Jews are the Jews who keep Shmita? What's so mighty? I thought the Torah promises them that in the 6th year, they're going to get triple. So how are they being mighty? Right? Imagine Hashem said, I'm giving you a very hard mitzvah. Every 7th day, I want you to keep Shabbos. And imagine if every Friday you look at the bank account and it doubles. So it's a big challenge to keep Shabbos. I only need to make, the only reason I work is to make money. If I still make the money without going to work, I'll be happy to stay home. So if Hashem's bracha is really, you could take it to the bank, and it's really true, and every 6th year you can make triple what you need to, then how is the Medrash saying that the true Giborim are the ones who keep Shmita? Big spiel. What's the big deal that they're keeping Shmita? They're getting a triple crop in the 6th year. Why is it difficult? It's not difficult to keep Shmita. If you're getting 3 years worth in 1 year, it's not hard to keep Shmita. Okay. So we're going to learn something very interesting from the Sma. The Sma was one of the main commentaries on Shulchan Aruch, Chosh and Mishpat, the monetary laws of Shulchan Aruch. By the way, the Sma was a Kohen. Anyway, the Sma tells us something like this. He says, he's bothered by our question on Tosfos. Well, again, what was our question on Tosfos? Our question was, Tosfos said that the Chachamim did not want to impose any halacha, that you're not allowed to work during Yovel. Why? Because it would be too difficult for people to bear it. It would be too difficult not to work in the 50th year, followed by the 49th year. So what was our question? What was our question on Tosfos?
What's the Torah?
Right? Why is it so hard to keep the halachos 49 a year, 49 year 50, if you're getting bracha in the 48th year for 4 years worth. So listen to what the Shema says. It's 3 lines from the bottom. Didavka, you see that? Didavka bizman shahaya shmita v'yovel noheg min haTorah haya mikuyam b'hen habracha. This is number 4. Excuse me. Only when the mitzvah of Shmita and Yovel applied min haTorah would you get bracha. Legada b'shana shishas, for it to grow in the 6th year, l'shlosh shanim, for 3 years. But nowadays, that the mitzvah of Shmita is only midrabanan, who told you there's any bracha? There is no bracha. When do you have a bracha in the 6th year? That's if the Torah commands you that you're not allowed to work in the 7th year. So the Torah says don't work, and the Torah says, yeah, and if you don't work, I'm going to give you a bracha. But nowadays, not working during the Shmita year, is that min haTorah? You said it's not min haTorah. Since Yovel does not apply midoraisa, why does Yovel not apply? Because the Jewish people are not in the land of Israel. And if Yovel doesn't apply, the laws of Shmita seemingly would not apply midoraisa. So any reason to keep Shmita would only be midrabanan, to remember what Shmita used to be. So just because the rabbis told me to keep Shmita, they were invested with the power to safeguard the Torah. But who said the rabbis have the power to tell Hashem, yeah, they're going to keep our mitzvah, just make sure they get a double crop in the 6th year. Who says the rabbis have that power? Says the Shema, the bracha of a bumper crop in the 6th year was only when the Torah told you to rest in the 7th year. But nowadays, when the Torah never told you have to rest in the 7th year, it was Rabbanan. There's no bracha. There's no bracha. So you know what the Medrash is talking about when the Medrash says that the biggest giborim, the mightiest spiritual warriors are those who keep Shmita? It's talking about people who keep Shmita nowadays. Because there's no mitzvah midaraisa to keep Shmita. It's only midrabanan. And they're not promised any bracha. They require a lot of strength because they're not working and they're not promised any blessing.
Rabbanan said it's going to happen, it should happen.
Okay, so we're going to see. That would be position on the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish is going to say that. But right now the Shema says, Shmita midrabanan, you get any bracha? No bracha. Yes.
Something you just said just triggered another thought.
Yes.
The Shvatim are not in their land. We don't know who the different tribes are.
All right.
The Kohanim didn't even have any land. So it moves it further and further away.
Okay. But at least, you see, nowadays, there is Shmita midrabanan. The rabbi said to remember the way they used to leave the land fallow in the time when the Jewish people were on the land. So to commemorate that, you should still keep the laws of Shmita. But it's only midrabanan. Midoraisa, you're right. There's no Yovel. Why? Because the Jewish people are not on the land and they're not situated by the tribes, and therefore Shmita seemingly would also not apply midoraisa. And therefore the Sefer Mitzvah, the Shema says that there is no blessing promised to those who keep Shmita nowadays.
You said something that it raised me a question.
Yeah.
So when Yovel canceled in Galut Sanchariv?
When did it cancel? When the Jews were exiled to Babel.
The 10 tribes were exiled before that. You need 12 tribes in order to Yovel.
Good point. Exactly when did Yovel cease? Yeah, but the Gemara Megillah says that even though Sancherib exiled the 10 tribes, Yirmiyahu brought them back.
They brought them after the destruction of the temple.
Okay, but then they came back, they went to Bavel, and they came back to Israel.
So they restored the Yovel back then? Or?
No, because most of the Jews did not return when they didn't return.
So when you didn't have the tribes, they came back.
I'm not 100% sure, but it would seem that by the second Beis Hamikdash it ended. You'd have to say when they were exiled, it certainly didn't apply because they weren't even there. Well, what's the difference? But even when they returned, since not everyone returned, it did not go back into effect. That's what it seemed like. Okay. What?
So you should check it.
Yeah.
If the condition is 12 tribes you don't have before the destruction of the first temple.
Yeah. I hear you saying. I don't know. Okay. With this, we're going to answer another question. Okay, we're going to answer another question. The Gemara in Yevamos says like this: Daf Tez Zayin. Gemara says that there were two occasions on which the Jews entered Eretz Yisrael. What were the two occasions? When the Jews came, when they left Mitzrayim, they went into Israel eventually after 40 years, and then they were in Israel. Anybody know how long the Jews were in Israel before they were exiled? 850 years. Yeah, 440 years before they built the first temple, and then the first temple stood 410. Okay, 850. They were exiled to where? Bavel, and 70 years, and then they brought back. Who led the Aliyah? Ezra. The Olei Mitzrayim and the Olei Bavel. Okay? The Gemara in Yevamos says, when the Jews went back to the land in the time of Ezra, they intentionally and deliberately did not reconquer certain cities. There were certain cities they did not reconquer, and thereby they did not re-sanctify. And they allowed these cities not to reattain the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. There's a concept in the Gemara, Kitcha l'shaita v'loy kitcha l'asad lavo, which means when Yehoshua conquered the land, he sanctified it temporarily. He did not sanctify it for all time. It needed to be re-sanctified by those who came back out of Bavel.
Yeah, one city, Yericho, is not supposed to.
Besides Yericho, the Gemara says they deliberately did not reconquer a number of cities. I don't think the Gemara says which cities it was. The Gemara in Yevamos says they did not reconquer certain cities. Why? If you don't reconquer the city, it does not retain and regain the status of Israel. If it doesn't regain the status of Israel, Chaim, in your backyard, you have to keep the laws of Shmita? No. So the same way in Chaim Cohen's backyard, it doesn't have to keep the laws of Shmita. In Israel, if it was not reconquered by Ezra, you don't have to keep the laws of Shmita. They did not re-sanctify it. Why did the Jews not re-sanctify the land? Because they were afraid that if they're going to re-sanctify the land, there are a lot of poor people in Israel. What are they going to work in the 7th year? How are they going to make a living? What are they going to eat? During Shmita, there's no leket, shikha, and peah. There are no presents, gifts you give to aniyim. Everything is hefker. Everything is ownerless.
Yeah, but if you believe in God, and it says in Torah, if you give Shmita, you're going to have refill. Why do you have to worry about it?
It's not.
It's what?
It's a weak emunah.
All right. So what do you mean? Good kasha. What do you mean? They were worried about the aniyim? What do you mean? The Torah says, don't worry, Shemitah is not going to cause you any harm. You're going to have a blessing in the 6th year, you have a bumper crop. So what's the Gemara saying? That when the Jews returned from Bavel, they intentionally did not reconquer certain cities. Why? So that the aniyim would have a place to work, and they would have food to eat. They would get the leket, the shikha, and peh. What do you mean? We just said the Torah promised the bumper crop. But according to what we just learned, why is it not a good question? Because what?
Not from Torah, from the Rabbanah.
Because when the Jews returned in the times of Bavel, did Shmita apply midaraisa? No. Shmita doesn't apply midaraisa. You get bracha? No bracha. So that's why they had to be worried about the benefit of the aniyim. Okay? Good kasha. By the way, your kasha is asked by the Sefer Nahar Shraga. It's a new Sefer discovered this week. It's written by Rav Moshe B'Tzalel Luria. Moshe B'Tzalel Luria, he lived from 1835 to 1916. I don't know too much about him. What? I don't know. I'll tell you one story about the Nahar Shraga. One time, Nahar Shraga, he was giving a drasha in his shul. He was telling the Balabatim to give more tzedakah. And nobody paid attention. Nobody was listening. The next week again, Rabbi, you have to give tzedakah. So you have to help out the poor. Nobody listened. So he left his shul and he started draying around the marketplace, wasting his time. So he goes, well, you're the Rav. You got to be learning. What are you wasting your time in the marketplace? He said, no. It says in Pirkei Avos, the world stands on 3 things, right? What are they? Torah, Avodah, right? Torah, Avodah, which is karbanos, gemilas chasadim. We don't have Avodah anymore. We don't have karbanot. So the Gemara says, what do you do if you have a chair that has 3 legs and one of the legs is taken away? You could still stick something under, to support it. But now the Rabbi said, you don't want to give tzedakah. We don't have karbanot. We don't have gemilas chasadim. So now the chair only has 1 leg. You can't support a chair that only has 1 leg. A chair that only has 1 leg, what do? got to chop off the last leg. So the last leg is Torah. No point in me learning anymore. So I'm draying around the marketplace. So I think they got the message, that they better shape up. Okay. Fine. So what we're learning is that the Shema tells us that the bracha of Shmita is only promised to those who keep Shmita midoraisa from the Torah. Those who keep Shmita midrabana, nowadays, they're not promised any bracha. And we brought 3 proofs. Proof number 1 is the fact that Tosfos tells us that, nowadays it would be too difficult to institute Shmita and Yovel because it would be too hard for people not to work 2 consecutive years. What do you mean be too hard? You have the bracha. Must be there's no bracha nowadays. We brought a proof from the fact that the Medrash says, who are the mightiest ma'aminim? Those who keep Shmita. Ma'aminim? You don't need emunah. If you have a triple crop in the 6th year, you don't need any emunah. The answer is nowadays there's no more triple crop, there's no more bracha. And finally, we brought a proof from the fact that those who returned from Bavel, they deliberately left over certain cities because they needed to support the aniyim. Support the aniyim? What about the bumper crop? Must be there's no more bumper crop. Okay. Just for sake of your own knowledge, it is not everybody's opinion that Shmita nowadays is only midrabanan. The Rambam, at least in one place, seems to imply that Shmita nowadays is midoraisa. Sorry, you wanted to ask something before?
I was going to ask, you said there was 2 types of Shmita.
Yeah.
Then there comes another 3rd type of Shmita.
Yeah.
The Shmita that cancels the loans that were set on the mount. This Shmita and the other Shmita, do they both count in these times?
They may not be dependent on each other. Shmita of loan nowadays is midrabanan according to everybody.
But would they count?
What do you mean count?
Would they still count? Right?
Yeah.
Doing prosbul in Israel.
They do it here also in America.
It's okay.
So it's working.
Yeah, but their opinion, that there is Shmita on loans nowadays? Midrabanan, there's Shmita of loans. Yeah. Shmita of land...
But I don't understand something. If the Torah gave us a law.
Shmita of land may be nowadays even midoraisa.
That's what I'm saying.
You read someplace it's not working because there's a place that's like people leave and they came back to the city because they build the city somehow in like they keep in the city from Porshin, lebefnim. So if let's say someone leave the country for 50 years and then he come back, he wants his land back, so they don't let him take it.
But
I don't know.
But I don't understand what you said, that it's the Rabbanan and not the Oraita. If the law originally generated by the Torah, how the Rabbanan can come and say, no, it's now we say that it's the Rabbanan and not the Oraita?
Because the law generated by the Torah...
It's separate. Yovel is separate than Shmita. It's 2 different things.
You mean why is Shmita dependent on Yovel?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't do this part, but if you look at number 6, Rashi brings down the Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi says like this. There's a pasuk in the Torah, V'zeh devar hashmita shamot. It uses the lashon of Shmita 2 times. One is to talk about the returning of land in Yovel. One is we're talking about the Shmita year. And from there we derive the 2 are dependent on each other. So it's not the Rabbanan who said, the biblical law is not in effect anymore. There's a drasha in the Torah that Shemitah's contingent is dependent on Yovel. Okay? Yeah, you buy that? Yeah. That's all right.
I knew that there was an answer, definitely.
Yeah. That's what Rashi brings down. But look at the Rambam. The Rambam says in number 7, Ein shvius nohegas ela be'eretz Yisrael bavad. Shmita only applies in Eretz Yisrael. Shenemar, ki savayu el haaretz, if you'll come to the land, asher ani nosein lachem, that I give you, bein b'fnei habayis. It applies both when there is a Beis HaMikdash, ubein shaloi b'fnei habayis, and when there's no Beis HaMikdash. The simple reading of the Rambam is, Shmita applies, yeah, Beis HaMikdash, no Beis HaMikdash, doesn't matter. Shmita always applies. And the implication is it applies midoraisa. Okay. Not like we just said. Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay. There's another Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Malachim says that, okay, it's kedai to read this, even though not all of it has, it's important to know. You know, some people, I once met a guy, he tells me, he doesn't believe in Mashiach. So, what is he? What is he? You know, it hasn't come. I don't what is he? He's not Bikares, or, you know, some people say, it doesn't say about Mashiach in the Chumash. Yeah, it does.
It does.
It does.
Yaakov.
It does.
Yaakov, and he says to his
It does.
kids.
The Rambam says if you don't believe in Mashiach, you're not just denying the Nevi'im, you're denying Moshe Rabbeinu, you're denying the Torah. That's a fundamental tenet of belief. But look what the Rambam says. He says, HaMelech HaMashiach, the Mashiach, Osid Lamoid, Ulahachser Machas Beis David Liyashna, he's going to restore the Davidic line, HaMemshala Harishona, to its original dominion. Ubona Mikdash, he's going to build the base of Mikdash. Umekabetz Nidchei Yisrael, he's going to gather in all the Jews. V'choizvin kol HaMishpatim b'yamav kshahayu mikodem. All the laws will be restored. Look what he says. Makrivim karbanos, we'll start to bring sacrifices. V'osin shmitin v'yovlos, we're going to restore the Shmita and Yovel cycle. Kechol mitzvasan amur b'Torah, like the mitzvah the Torah says. Now look what he says. V'chomi she'eno mamin bo, if you don't believe in Mashiach, or mi she'eno mechake l'biyasa, or you're not awaiting his coming, lo b'shar nevi'im b'vado kafir, you're not just denying Yirmiyah, Yeshaya, Yechezkel, ela b'Torah v'Moshe Rabbeinu. You don't have you're denying the Torah. And the Rambam goes on to quote Psukim. Hashem says explicitly, V'shav, v'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim asher hafitzcha shama. It's explicit in the Torah. God will, through the agent of Mashiach, will ingather all of the Jewish people. Fine. This Rambam that says Mashiach will restore Shmita, obviously holds that Shmita nowadays is not Midaraisa, because if it's Midaraisa, you don't need Mr. Mashiach to restore it. It's still in effect. So there's a contradiction in the Rambam, really. The Rambam, Hilchos Shmita, says, Shmita applies, yeah, Beis HaMikdash, no Beis HaMikdash. And on the other hand, the Rambam says, Mashiach is going to restore Shmita and Yovel. Okay? So that will be your homework to try to explain these two Rambams. Someone is saying when the Rambam says, yeah? No, what do you want to say?
That's him talking in general what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not specific, says how you're going to do korbanot.
No, but what do you need Mashiach to restore Shmita? Shmita is still in effect.
No, it just says that they're going to restore. Like what? Like Shmita, like korbanot, like going back.
But Shmita, you don't need to restore. Gabi, he doesn't say Mashiach is going to restore Tefillin. We wear Tefillin, right? So Shmita...
I don't know, it's two different concepts. One is what you don't have now,
so
restore.
We have Shmita. What?
Yeah, I know, but...
So why does he have to say Mashiach is going to restore Shmita? We have Shmita.
Okay.
No? No, so you could say the Rambam holds Shmita as Midrabanan, and when he says Mashiach is going to restore...
You can say that, but it's also you
don't like the question. You don't...
I'm not disputing that it's the Rabbanan or the Oraita. I'm just saying this is two different sentences, two different meanings.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it after. Okay? We'll talk about it after. Okay. Now... So basically, so far we've learned the opinion of the Sma. The Sma says, Shmita Midaraisa, you get blessing. You keep the rabbi's laws, you get a mitzvah, you get schar. Maybe you'll have success in other areas. You're not promised the bumper crop. Okay. Comes the Chazon Ish. Now you know the Chazon Ish was very instrumental when the state of Israel was being founded in making sure the laws of the land were being kept in the proper way. That's one of the... Chazon Ish spent time in the fields studying agriculture to try to understand different halachos of the land. Chazon Ish says like this. No, I don't buy this, ma. I don't accept that. Like you're saying, Ruben, right? If the Rabbanon come and say you should keep Shmita nowadays, there's a concept, Bezdin in Shamayim follows whatever Bezdin paskins down here. Whatever the Chachamim, some people say, no, I don't want to listen to the rabbis, they're not right. They made a mistake. It doesn't matter if they made a mistake. Even if the rabbis made a mistake, they're right. Even if they're wrong, they're right. Because the halacha is not determined by the truth. It's very important. The halacha is not determined by the truth. The Gemara tells us that there was a machlokes in halacha between Rabbah and Hashem. And we paskin like Rabbah, because Hashem said, Lo b'shamayim hi. The Torah is not given to the heaven. The Torah is not the absolute truth. The Torah is the truth as determined by the Chachmei Hadar. And if they made a mistake, that becomes the truth. That's the way it works. If Chachamim say to keep Shmita, then in heaven it's Shmita. If it's Shmita, you get God's blessing of the bumper crop. Chazon Ish says there's no difference between D'Rabbanan and the Oraisa. Fine. So if there's no difference between the D'Rabbanan and the Oraisa, and you always get the blessing, whether it's the Oraisa or D'Rabbanan, we have a lot of issues we need to explain. We said that the Olei Bavel did not sanctify certain cities. Why? Because they were worried about the Aniyim. They were worried about the poor. What were they worried about the poor? What about the bumper crop? And don't tell me this business with the D'Rabbanan. Who cares if it's D'Rabbanan or D'Oraisa? We said, who are the mighty warriors? Those who keep Shmita. So we asked, well, big deal. What kind of might? What kind of might is that? They're getting the bumper crop. So the Sma wanted to say it's only Shmita Midrabanan. Chazon Ish says Shmita Rabbanan, Shmita D'Oraisa. It's the same thing. So Chazon Ish says like this. Not the most inspiring idea, but it's the truth. And that is, what does the Torah mean when it says you're going to get blessing in the 6th year? Is that an absolute guarantee that anyone who keeps Shmita is going to get a triple crop in the 6th year? No. Not an absolute guarantee. So what is it? It's like this.
Even if there is a Torah.
Even if there's a Torah. Yeah, good, right. Even when you're keeping Shmita Midoraisa, what's this blessing? You can't take it to the bank. Why not? Because this is what Hashem is telling you. You work the 1st year, you work the 2nd year. Let me ask, is it possible that even when you're working the 1st year and the 2nd year, is it possible that there may be drought? Yeah. Is it possible there may be locust? Yeah. Is it possible you may not be successful? Yeah. But naturally, when you work, it will produce. So a person will say, how can I keep Shmita? Naturally, if I'm not going to work, I'm not going to make any money, I'm not going to have food. So God is saying, I guarantee you that you're not working and you're letting the field lay fallow will not be the cause of any harm. Does that mean automatically nothing bad will happen in the 7th year? No. Something bad can happen in year 1, something bad can happen in year 2, even when you are working. So something bad can happen in year 7. The blessing is not a guarantee, it's just a guarantee that your lack of not doing anything is not going to be the cause of any harm. You hear? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's
in other words, yeah.
Zot bracha, right? This is ze bracha ukala.
It's a bracha.
If you follow the ways of Torah, this is your bracha. So the bracha is going to come regardless of to keep the 7th year.
The bracha
is part of the.
Let me ask you a question. If you stay at home and you don't do anything, money. Let's say a person makes $100,000 a year. I work, I make $100,000 a year. I work a year 2, I make $100,000 a year. Then I take year 5 off. You're still going to make $100,000 a year? Probably not, because you're not doing any effort, so God's not going to make a miracle. But here God is saying, even though naturally you're not doing anything and really you should not make any money, no, you're not doing anything will not be the cause of you not getting the money. But it doesn't mean you'll have money. The same way you might not have money in year 1. Is it possible? Sometimes, people work a whole year, they look at the account, there's nothing there. They didn't have a good year. So the blessing is not your bank account will be full, it's that it won't be lacking because of this. Could be you'll be lacking for other reasons. What?
There's people who tell you take check. If you can.
It's likely there'll be a blessing. The same way it's likely when you work, you'll make money. It's also likely if you'll keep Shmita, you'll have money that year. But you can't rely on it and say, I'm relying on the miracle of God. You have to take, in other words, the Chazon Ish tells us, and the Chazon Ish says, let's say somebody's starving in the 7th year. Let's say, and someone's if he doesn't work the land, he's going to die. Is he allowed to work the land, or should he say, no, God promised blessing? So I maybe before this year, I would have said, look, the Torah says you're going to get blessing, you're going to get it, you know how to work the land. Chazon Ish says, no, it's not a guaranteed thing. It's likely. It just means your lack of working is not going to be the source of anything bad. But it doesn't mean for sure you'll have money. And therefore, the Chazon Ish says, if you see that you don't have what to eat, then you have to break the laws of Shmita like you have to break any mitzvah if your life is in danger. So in other words, this is not an absolute blessing, it's just a blessing that this will not be the source of any harm.
Why not? But it says, there's 3 people in cross. Why not the Torah? The Torah saying, not somebody, the Torah saying that. So why you can say it different way?
But,
Nothing's guaranteed.
In other words, another way of saying it is like this. Let's say the Torah says, if you do a certain mitzvah, you'll have money. So now here you...
So if you do something good, you get...
Right, in other words, Shema Yigram Achit. A person may have other Averos that will not allow the blessing to be Chal. Well, the Torah says I'm for sure going to have blessing. No,
but when the Torah says that the direct link, whatever you do, you're going to be rewarded. It's not that Judaism. No, Jews don't. You need to, in general, to keep the mitzvot and not to expect that everything's going to be perfect.
Right. Normally we say, Schara b'haya amaleka. Normally we say there's no reward in this world. We're going to need 5 more minutes. Normally we say Schara b'haya amaleka. You don't get reward in this.
Not on everything.
There are exceptions. We learned sometimes there are a lot of exceptions. But in general, there's no reward in this world. By the way, it doesn't mean you don't get good things in this world for doing mitzvahs. It just means, the main reward is not in this world. You could get side benefits, insurance, pension, all those stuff. Yeah, you get good stuff.
It's above your knowledge to understand what is your reward. You live in your life and you don't know what's happening to you. And basically, you need to.
Exactly the reward you're supposed to get.
You don't think. You're not supposed to do things in order to be rewarded immediately.
Okay. Let's just, after all has been said and done, we have basically 2 opinions. The opinion of Sma is that when Shmita only applies midrabanan, no blessing. No blessing. Midaraisa, yeah, you're guaranteed of it. When you keep Shmita Rabbanan, no blessing. Chazon Ish says there's no difference between Daraisa and Rabbanan, but the blessing is not something you could always take to the bank. Fine. Just want to tell you one historical incident. In a observant Moshav, very well-known Moshav called Moshav Komamios, which was led by Rabbi Binyamin Mendelsohn, who is the Av Bezin of Komamios, and he was very instrumental in making sure that the residents of this Moshav adhere to laws of Shmita. And obviously, the Sma, which is on the side of Shulchan Aruch, is not the most inspiring thing for a farmer when you're trying to tell him, keep Shmita, and don't worry, you'll get blessing. When the Sma says nowadays, Shmita, you don't get any blessing, right? So, Rabbi Binyamin Mendelsohn had a way to understand the Sma, where even though Shmita is only midrabanan, you still get the blessing. His first point is like this. If you look at number 13, take a look at inside. And that is, first he wants to say like this, that the Sma only said that when Yovel is midrabanan, you don't get a blessing during Yovel. But Shmita midrabanan, the Sma never said that when Shmita is only midrabanan, you don't get a blessing. What's the difference between Yovel and Shmita? There's a very big difference. Yovel is considered a year of great spirituality. It's considered a year of Kedusha. The bracha of Yovel is supposedly, it comes from a very high place. So for that bracha, maybe nowadays you don't get that bracha anymore, now that Yovel is only midrabanan. But for Shmita is the 7th year. It's Rabbi Mendelsohn wanted to say that the Sma never said that the blessing of Shmita no longer applies. It was only Yovel he was talking about. When he said that now that it's only midrabanan, you don't get the blessing, it was only Yovel, not Shmita. Okay. Then he wanted to say something else. It's not that when Shmita is only midrabanan, you don't get any blessing. No. It's that you don't get the blessing of the Torah. But if the Rabbanan say to keep Shmita, the same way they have the power to institute Shmita, they have the power to bring bracha also. But you have to have emunah in the Chachamim. The same way when you keep the laws of Shmita, you have emunah in Hashem, Hashem could bring you the bracha. You have to have a certain trust that the Chachamim are the ones who are entrusted. They're the guardians over the Torah. And by keeping their halachos, you're able to get blessing through following the mitzvahs of the Chachamim. Okay. And based on that, Rabbi Mendelsohn encouraged the farmers of Moshav Komamios to adhere to the laws of Shmita. Very interesting. In the year 1957, so the government, the authorities in Israel were trying to build up the country, trying to beautify the country, and they paid money to develop many moshavim. And they came to Komamios, and they offered to build up a beautiful orchard in Komamios. So they said, the people of Komamios said, look, our rabbi is very strict about Shmita. You could plant your orchards, but we're not going to be doing anything to them in the 7th year, and you're going to be investing a lot of money. Who knows what's going to happen in the 7th year? So they said, yeah, no way, Jose, get lost. We're not spending money on your moshav. So the matter got delayed for another year until 1958, and eventually they're able to convince the government to plant an orchard in Komamios. The Shmita year finally came in 1959, and the government was very upset with Rabbi Mendelssohn. We just invest a lot of money in your moshav, and it's going to go down the drain. If you're not planting, you're not reaping, you're not doing anything to the orchard, there's no way this orchard is going to last. So Rav Mendelssohn himself is a little bit nervous, because here he is. He's sort of the Shema says there's no more bracha anymore. And even the Chazon Ish says that if Shmita would be midaraisa, you can't be guaranteed there's a bracha. And here, Rav Mendelssohn he's taking it upon himself to say, well, the Shema was only talking about Yovel. Yeah, but they invested a lot of money in the moshav, and here he is. He's making them being machmir in this mitzvah. Very unclear whether the bracha is going to come. In any event, at the end of the year, the government official was in charge of developing the land of Israel. He came to Komamios and he said, I want you to know, we planted 12 orchards in the land of Israel. And the one that was the most successful, and the one that produced the most fruits was Moshav Komamios. So I don't understand, how's that possible? You didn't do anything in the 7th year. So Rav Mendelssohn said, the reason is, the first Ani Mamin we say, is we believe that God made, makes, and will make. He controls everything, and we put our trust in Him to fulfill the laws of Shmita, whether it's midaraisa, it's only midrabana. Nevertheless, we trusted in Him, and that is why Moshav Komamios has been the most successful of all the Moshavim. Very interesting. The government recorded in its official record book that Moshav Komamios, they did not touch their orchard in the Shmita year, and it was matzliach, it was successful. So this became, the news spread all over Israel, and when the Brisker Rav found out about it, he said we need to publish in the newspapers, all the Chilonim should find out about the miracle of Shmita. Fine. They're about to do it. News came to America, to Rav Aaron Cutler, who was Rosh Yeshiva of Lakewood. He said, no, you can't publicize it. Why? It's an ayin hara. You can't cause people to. He's Ashkenazi. He's not even Sephardi. So bottom line is, there are two opinions. Again, the Sma says Shmita midrabanan, no bracha. Chazon Ish says even Shmita midaraisa, you can't take it to the bank. Nevertheless, our tradition, so to speak, is that when farmers are careful in the laws of Shmita, the Rebbeinu Shalom takes care of them. And as we see from this incident in the Moshav of Komamios. Shkayach. What do they have to do to re-sanctify? I think it's specifically talking about not Israel proper, certain areas of Ammon and Moab, which the first time, the fact that we lived there sanctified it, and now there's some type of procedure you need to do.
Nothing like today that we have like a king.
You may need a melech, you may need a navi, there's a procedure. Okay.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.